first thing I want to start with was a question around how technology can support transport authorities to run great bus services. And I probably should give some more context around that, because I think every person that's spoken today has probably answered that in their own way to some extent. So I wanted to set what I meant by that and what I was going to talk about. So for us, it's around the context of contract management and performance management, and bringing that data to the forefront so that transport authorities who are increasingly managing more and more contracted services or subsidised services or franchise services have got the data to be able to have conversations and set up some service management conversations around what good looks like, how we can be improving bus services, and set a consistent quality of service across the region. Let's move along. And there's lots of benefits to be doing this. Once we've got a system which brings contract management data and performance data together, then we can enable partnership conversations. How do we improve things in our region and work together? We can create a clear and objective framework for what good looks like and how people are rewarded. So that creates clarity. I already mentioned around being able to have a consistent quality of service, which organisations moving towards franchising, that's really important because they've then got their brand on their buses. So at that point, the passenger doesn't really care as much who is operating the bus. They're just dealing with the service in their area. And then we can also shift the focus from collecting data into actually taking action and having those conversations, which is probably a bit of a stereotype for anyone that's kind of sat through a BI type presentation before. That's always kind of like one of the benefits. But Adam and I were talking to a transport authority recently, and one of their people, one of their main aspects of their job is spending 2 weeks a month collating all the data. And their output was largely the same as what we're doing. We just kind of do it automatically as things go along because we've got the integrations there. And we're seeing a lot of demand growth for this. So it's something that we've been doing for a long period of time, contract management systems, performance management, but we've seen a lot of demand growth. So we commissioned a report with a consultancy called CIL earlier this year, and they found that as authorities are taking on more and more services and more of an active role in transport plans and regions, which we've heard about here today, they expected these kind of systems to be in more demand. And we've seen that borne out. We've had 3 tenders this year already, and we're now deploying three of those systems in Lancashire, West Yorkshire and South Yorkshire. So there is a growing demand. But what we're seeing out in the marketplace is lots of kind of, home-built systems, largely dependent on Excel and in-house developed databases. But we're also finding that because this is becoming a hot topic, it's becoming quite crowded in terms of lots of solutions coming into the space. And some of them don't necessarily always make it easier. I was sitting through a pitch recently with an organisation that wanted to work with us, and they were kind of talking about a managed service over the top of what we do, and I was kind of, this doesn't quite sit quite right. And eventually I kind of felt like this is like buying a calculator and then employing somebody to use it for you, right? Which doesn't make any sense. So from our perspective, it's been about creating off-the-shelf systems which can be used and plug into the systems that all of our operators are using, whether that's our lost mileage systems or vehicle fuel and mileage systems, which most of the bus operators in the UK use. But in terms of the data that we're pulling together, getting into that of what it is that we're trying to measure, we're breaking that down into kind of 3 areas. So the reliability of bus services, which we would say is the most important, because as long as the bus service arrives, you're pretty happy. The driver being key to that, because that's the person that the passenger's seeing and interacting with, and the vehicle because that is the product really that they're interacting with once they get onto the bus. And so with those 3 things, we're then able to build up a picture and we have to pull in a whole bunch of data to be able to build up that picture. But once we've got it, it's then quite easy to be able to have those conversations around what's missing or what's not quite right and what could be improved upon. Let me check that on my notes. But to build that picture, we need some data, and we're pulling that from lots of different places. Some of them are our systems, some of them are third-party systems, like ticket machine and AVL data to track locations, which is where we get our reliability, or telematics around how people are driving, and staff records and training data so that people are trained to the right standards when they're operating services, and inspections and audit and fleet management data around vehicles and how they're being looked after and maintained. And that comes through into compliance and whether the right vehicle is being used to deliver those services, but in terms of capacity or emissions or whatever it may be that's defined within that particular contract. So in terms of our kind of performance layer, this is something that we did in partnership with Transport for Wales, and they were taking over their kind of cross-Wales bus services, Traws Cymru services. And their objective when they were taking these on, it was the first time they'd done that, and they were going to be managing services and working with operators. And they set out with this objective that if they deliver high quality services, they will increase patronage, which is obviously quite revolutionary. I don't think it'll catch on, but that's what they wanted to do. So, and the first part of that was around reliability, and by that, when I was talking about reliability, what I mean by that is journeys completed and being able to analyse that data, journey start time, and whether it was completed to the correct specification. Next part was drivers, which again is around driver getting down to the level of complaints and compliments, and whether that person's trained correctly, and through to the telematics data around how drivers from particular operators are driving. And then through to the vehicle as well, both in terms of the way that it's maintained, but also inspections in terms of, for example, if there's been an accident, is the vehicle repaired and back up to standard within a certain period of time? And so to be able to do that with Transport for Wales, we have to pull all of this various data together so that creates one single picture, and that's enabled them to be able to have conversations around areas to improve, to be clear around what good looks like, to be able to have conversations, which I think was what the last guys were on was saying, around to be able to challenge people to be saying, these people are doing this really well, but actually also if we did X, Y, and Z, we may well be able to improve in those areas, which is to the benefit of everyone using those services across the region. And so where all that comes down to then is something that we pulled together. We've got a bunch of data all coming into those three streams and creating a scoring matrix so that we're then able to rank people, find operators which have got really good reliability scores, beautifully clean and looked after vehicles, but their drivers are kind of rude, and we can have a conversation with them about that. So it creates that data and puts it in front of people so that they can go and have those conversations rather than spending lots of time either trying to pull it all together themselves or indeed being pretty vague and unclear on what they mean by this is what good looks like. So we're moving on to the roundtables next. We'd be keen to understand if you're a transport director, how you manage this today, what you would be doing to improve things within your area, the impact of clear expectations between kind of supplier, I guess operator in this case, and transport authorities, and the impact of that effective partnership. That'd be a good conversation to have. In terms of a summary and interest of time, clear data we think leads to defined expectations, and when you're having those conversations you can create a better experience for all. And that's everything from me. Thank you very much for listening.